Alright, what's good, Dragon Brood? So we did that play-by-play a couple days ago that people actually liked, so we had another interesting moment on stream that I figured I would bring up and try to critique myself a little bit more. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. And it's actually kind of interesting because we came up against a deck we don't really see very much, which was a Temur Flash deck. That's not something we really run into very much. I actually even played it differently, thinking it was a different deck early on in game one. But anyway, let's check it out. And before we get into it, why don't you hit the like and subscribe button while I set up everything and get us ready for the rest of the video. Okay, we're back and we're all set. So let's hop right into it here. So this hand was an easy keep. No real surprise on that mulligan. We've got 3 lands. We could play all the spells. We can even get to a setup where we can even Ember Cleave here. So this is mostly fine. And the funny thing is here at this stage, because of what we've been playing in the ladder, I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably another one of those mid-range, Bant or Sultai decks. So we're just going to get in there for 2 with haste, because having a 3-3 doesn't even really matter in these matchups. Unless you want to block like a land from a Nissa, but otherwise, no real worries. Yeah, and then here you just go with the 3-cost thing, because since we already have the other land in hand, we can follow up with two mana things. So that's kind of nice. Though I have to admit, I did get a bit surprised by that quench there. I wasn't really even thinking about that coming. Now this we like because if they do sweep the board next turn, then we're able to play the Phoenix as a follow-up. And the interesting thing here is that because of the quench, I actually started thinking this was a Wilderness Reclamation deck. But, it was kind of interesting. The opponent didn't really do anything, and I was like, well, should we just attack with the Zerta Goblin too? But then I was like, well, let me hold back, see what happens. And this was mostly like putting the opponent to the test just to see what type of deck it was or what else they were playing. And I didn't necessarily want to commit too much to the board if they were playing a Wilderness Reclamation, because they were probably just going to sweep our board the next turn. But then after they played the Brine Board Cutthroat, I was like, okay, well, obviously I can safely play this Zertai Goblin now. So then I just made it a 3-3. Now this was cool because I was like, okay, you have the Ember Cleave. We're all set to go here. I'm thinking the opponent's only at 10. I mean, this is probably a done deal, real close to it. So I was really curious what the opponent was going to play here. Because I was like, okay, well, maybe they just play a wolf, Nightpack Ambusher. But I was like, okay, they're just blocking. Like, I don't understand. So now we're in a game of chicken. So I'm like, okay, I'm still not going to play this Ember Cleave because they probably have either another Bone Crusher Giant or some type of Brazen Bar bounce effect. So it's like no point in dedicating to the board here. And since we have their Bone Crusher Giant, if they do have something, we can still kill their pumped up Brineborn Cutthroat. And actually there it was. So we got very lucky. Like, it was interesting because I really wanted to play the Ember Cleave, but no, it wasn't the right spot for it. Though interestingly, if we would have deployed the Ember Cleave, we could have still got damage through if we really wanted to, but just didn't think it was worth it, especially since here all they're going to do is bounce a 3-3 and I can just redeploy it as a 3-3. And with the opponent 8, we have another haste creature, we have the Ember Cleave, so it's just like, all right, this has to be the end of the game on some level, right? Because unless the opponent has 2 things, if they make 1 blocker, then that should be it. And I was really curious what the opponent was going to do here. But it's kind of like a waiting game, sort of wait and see. Let's see what the opponent's up to. And then there's an ambusher, which they may have had last turn. I don't really know. But then it's like, okay, well, they're going to block 2 things. And then we just Ember Cleave the... Well, Yeah, you just Embercleave the big goblin, and because I have to block that one, right? And then that's it. Then they split them up, and I was like, okay, well, you just Embercleave the middle one, and it's game over. I think here I'm just like explaining to people on stream kind of the situation before I actually just play the Embercleave and end it. Not sure why though, because honestly, might as well just end the game and get on to game 2. So this is obviously going to go on the 3-3 one and then just end the game. Wait, what?
Bruh.
What? Really?
Bruh.
Okay, so let me say I am a somewhat of a Gruul connoisseur, if you will. A self-appointed master of the green and red cards. I don't even know how I made that mistake. I mean, I know I'm on stream, I'm talking to people, we're having conversation, but even then, that is obvious. That is a terrible misplay. So obviously the game was not over, and we left the opponent at 2. And now they're getting free 3-3s, and now we have to work past that. And that's assuming they don't have something else to kill a creature here, something to bounce a thing. Like, this is a perfect example of how when you do miss lethal, that could be your only opportunity. So now it's just playing a questing beast, like hoping they don't have a way to bounce it. Of course, there's a Frill Mystic, which isn't a surprise. It's what we expected this type of deck to have at this point. Yeah, still got to attack. I mean, it's still lethal if they don't at least double block it. So the good news is, because of the Embercleave, you can at least put the opponent down to 1 and kill 2 creatures. Granted, they're going to get another token back, but like, what else are you going to do? And this is the part too where, even talking to the stream, there was a lot of like, okay, people did obviously call out the punt as they should. But then I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to do this so I can still pull out of this hole? The opponent's only at 1, so I can find different points of damage along the way, but how do we get there? Sinister Sabotage, cool. I mean, and that makes sense. I mean, this is the point where, you kind of have to just wear the opponent out of resources a little bit. And the interesting thing here is that they actually left whatever was on top when they had the chance to surveil with the Sabotage. So I'm kind of already set up for like, this is going to be bad for us, but what are we going to do? Now, there is a possibility that if we get a land here, things change, because then we can play 2 creatures and then try to come through. And it was even a red land, so it was like the best setup with 2 haste creatures here. So then it's a matter of like, do we want to equip or do we want to put a creature at risk? So just lead with the Xurkitai Goblin, see what happens. Which also might have been the wrong answer, because if they had something like a Mystical Dispute, well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't matter. We would have had to pay 3, so I guess it's fine. All right, so I'm assuming at this point, the opponent has some type of either some way to shoot the 2/2 or to bounce the 3/3, and then they're just going to put their Brazen Bar in the way. But they opted not to, so I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. What else do you have? And this was difficult because of that error we made with the Embercleave. Now I'm sitting here trying to figure out what's the best way to formulate these turns so I can take advantage of something like my Phoenix of Ash to end this game while the opponent's at 1. The good news is, by the opponent blocking here, I didn't mind because it kills off creatures, but it also puts more creatures in the graveyard. So knowing that they have the Brazen Bar, one of the attacks from the Phoenix is just going to be negated, because we're going to play it, they're going to block with the Phoenix. But if we have enough cards in the graveyard, we do get another shot at it. And I will admit, there was an argument to be made here that maybe the play is just play Bonecrusher Giant and equip. Because the reality is, if they have something that targets a Bonecrusher Giant, then they take 2 anyway, which probably was a better play. So not only did I misplay back on, like, what was that, turn 5, but then also kind of misplayed here on, I guess we're about turn 9. Though, that being said, I mean, Mystical Dispute was there, but we could have paid for that. So if we'd have led with the Bone Crusher, play Mystical Dispute, boom, that's it, at the end of the day. Because we would have taken 7 from them attacking, because we definitely wouldn't block. We could go ahead and equip, but then the opponent can't do anything other than possibly bounce the Embercleave, which is a possibility. But I think we would know if the opponent was able to bounce an Embercleave or not based on how they attacked. So then we could have used that as an indicator of what was going on. And then again here, this was a little bit of a mistake too, because we could have led with the Pelt Collector, so we also get that counter from the Phoenix coming down, and then once it dies in combat, you get another counter. So we would end up with a 3/3 Pelt Collector, really. So this is a good example of how like making one mistake kind of steamrolled and led to multiple other mistakes. Now, granted, it's not dire yet because we still have multiple ways out of this, especially because of the number of haste creatures we have and an Embercleave being on the table. But it does just go to show you that if you're not careful and you don't keep your head in the game, like this can really happen. And one of the things people that stream will tell you all the time is that it can get difficult trying to focus on the game and navigate the stream and deal with stuff in chat. And, now you have people redeeming channel points and stuff like that. But ultimately, the goal is still to play the game. So you can't really let that get away from you. So now this is a tough spot, right? Like, I know I can play the Phoenix one more time. Bare minimum, I'm going to have to block 2 things, and I can't even double block something. So, I mean, because I'm only at 5. If the opponent has another Bone Crusher Giant, we're dead. So, like, none of this looks good for us. I mean, this is all bad. And I debated it for a second, just like, doesn't matter what I block or whatever, but it really does. You just block the max damage here. By the way, I added Stonecoil Serpent just for last night to test it out. It did work in some matchups, but I have a version I'm going to be posting here in a couple days that actually doesn't have the Stonecoil Serpent anymore. And then here it's like, okay, well, we're going to try again. Best part is because now we have 7 mana, we don't get hit by another Dispute if they have it. And this is kind of it. This is the game, really. I mean, either they have it or they don't. If they have it, and they conceded. So got very, very, very lucky there. Don't even know what to tell you. That Embercleave miss was brutal. All right, so going into game 2. We've got a questionable hand because it's just so slow here. So I decided to toss it, and this is a lot better. In the sense that we have temples to kind of shape the deck a little bit. We do need to keep a Lava Coil just because if they do get something out early and we don't get a 2-drop creature, we want to be able to get stuff out of the way and keep fighting later in the game. But drawing that land was actually really bad, so this hand did not come together the way we wanted to. And then that's nice because we do have an instant speed thing that we can actually kill one of their cutthroats with if we choose to play it. And then the interesting thing too here is that I played the mountain instead of the stomping ground because I didn't want to give the opponent the indication that we had a spell to play. Because if you play the stomping ground and take the shock damage and then you don't play anything, well, you're basically telling your opponent, I'm leaving this mana up because I need it. But if you play 2 basics, your opponents don't really ever think twice because that could just be the land you had or you may be doing a thing. So you add another bit of doubt in the opponent's head. Now here I'm just playing this because I'm going to take 3 one way or the other, whether it's play the Phoenix or play the Giant. Wasn't really willing to play the Spellbreaker there yet because you would want another 4 power creature just to be able to fight their wolf when they play it. And then here it's just a small Pelt Collector which is just going to die. Not a lot you can do about it. And then, the opponent's hand was still pretty well stocked here, but this is a situation where we don't feel too bad because most of their spot removal isn't going to kill our Giant. And if they bounce it, they're going to take 2 anyway, and then we get another chance to do 2 damage in our hand. So it's kind of like, as much as we don't like the Bone Crusher Giant in some of the mid-rangey matchups, this is a situation where it's just fine. And then we decided to leave the red cap melee on top because, again, at instant speed, there's so many things you can kill that are totally worth it. And then here we're just getting their giant out of the way just so we can clear the path. I mean, the more damage we can do, you really force the opponent's hand on when they can play their instant speed flash creatures. Because as an example, if we end up just attacking for 5, well, if they have just a Frilled Mystic, if they decide to hold it, great. They're going to be at 8, and we'll wait, you know? If they have the Wolf, they kind of have to play it to block something for the most part. And I think that's the biggest deal for these types of matchups. It's early attrition, and then if you get a couple things to stick, you're almost home free. Yeah, so this is the tough part, right? This is where it becomes the game of chicken. Like, do we want to play something before our attack step or not? And how important is it? Because again, if they have a Frilled Mystic, like, do we care? Kinda. You know, if they have some other counter, maybe. But if it's not spell counters or Frilled Mystic, like, then what is it that's in their hand? And see, now this is a whole different question now. It's like, okay, well, do we attack? And here, I think we decided to go with hastiness on the creature because we do have that red cap melee. And we don't need 4 land now. We just need 3. So if they put something in the way, great. We'll just kill it. Yeah, now this surprised me. I was not even thinking this deck would be playing a Flame Sweep, which is not a bad card for the deck, but it was very peculiar. Yeah, and this was interesting because, like, well, they're still taking 2, so okay. So at 11, and then they're going to take 3. And then the other interesting thing is the Flame Sweep actually mattered because it makes it harder to use the Phoenix. So it was like, okay, I have exactly 3 cards in the graveyard, but I almost need to kill something with this red cap melee and then draw another land now to make sure I can get an extra use or 2 out of it. Yeah, the Brazen Borrower there was an interesting pickup, but I don't blame them for doing it. And then here we're just kind of going to hold on to this Shifting Ceratops. Yeah, the opponent has some stuff that's blue, and maybe we could have led with it and just not have haste. That's totally reasonable. We could have played that ahead of the Wolf, which is actually probably the correct play, knowing the opponent, most of their instant things are blue, and they're going to be counters. We could have probably played the Shifting Ceratops, let it sit, and then when we go to attack, if they play the Wolf, try to smack the Wolf with the red cap melee. I mean, we could have gotten a weird situation where they play a land and a Quench or something, but I think it still would have been worth it. So that's a place where I think we definitely missed the play. I think with the opponent having the mana up and they were low on cards, we probably should have just went ahead and played the Ceratops instead of attempting to get that Gruul Spellbreaker into play. But now this is interesting, because this is very much like, do I want to try to come over the top? You know, do I want to try to get extra activations out of the Phoenix? I mean, again, I know they have the Brazen Borrower, but I do still have this red cap melee. Now, the red cap melee is going to keep me from playing the Shifting Ceratops with haste, but the opponent's so low, like, how much do we care? It's kind of one of those things you have to start asking yourself, like, how much does it matter? And that was a big one. Like, the Scorching Dragonfire was like, oh man, they had another one. So they're down to a card and a Brazen Borrower here. So it's just like, well, okay. And then here, there is the opportunity to kill the Borrower, but the truth is, it doesn't block the one creature we're going to play anyway, so we don't really care. And if we were to get a 6th land, then we could have the protection we need for our Shifting Ceratops. Because then the opponent's hand would have to be some non-counter spell plus a creature of some variety. So it felt this was pretty safe for the most part, especially with the opponent only being at 3. So we're going to go ahead and activate. Get in there with haste. Now the opponent's kind of deciding what they're going to do here, which I'm not sure what they could do. But Frill Mystics are dead at this point in the game. The only thing they could really play is play their Ambusher. But again, we can try to target the Ambusher. And I don't even know. The same would have to be like Ambusher plus an Unsummon to protect their own Ambusher or something like that. It'd have to be a really weird sequence of cards for 2 cards. And I hadn't seen an Unsummon in their deck to this point. All right, there's the Ambusher, and like I said, we've been holding this to hit something, so I might as well hit the Ambusher, because we don't need 6 lands. Once we hit 5, we're kind of beyond our break point. And then now we just wait. If the opponent has a non-blue thing they could block with, great, but they're so low, we can probably just go ahead and trample. And that was it. So, in some ways there, I don't know, I guess that's a better matchup for us. And I thought just because of the number of haste creatures we have, it puts a lot of pressure on the opponent and their cards. But truthfully, I did not even play that match well. So I got a little bit lucky. I don't know if it had to do with the sequence of the opponent's cards, but I definitely got into a weird headspace after missing such an obvious play and even joking back and forth with people in stream about how bad that play was. I kind of just lost focus and just it led to at least 3 more mistakes, at least 2 more in that same game, and then 1 or 2 in the next game. So if there's an example of like how it can affect you, that's it for sure. So definitely, when you make a mistake, it's fine. You're going to make mistakes. People do. Even the best players in the world make mistakes at Magic. But the trick is you can't let it get to you. Don't let it get under your skin. And even if it does, try to crawl out of the hole. I've seen too many people make mistakes and then they just want to scoop because like, I can't believe I did that. That's so dumb. You win. But truthfully, like in that first game, I still had a shot, even up until the very last turn after making multiple mistakes. The opportunity to win was still there. Technically, I probably had 2 different ways to try to win. So, yeah, you just can't back it up because you don't know how the cards are going to come out. But anyway, I hope you all like that. That was something a little fun. I get to be critical of myself, and sharing it with y'all is actually kind of cathartic in some ways. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Also, give this video a like because that helps me out a bunch. And keep an eye on my page because we're putting a lot of stuff up almost every day. So we'll see you next time.